Hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So, you may have encountered the term more than meets the eye from Transformers. I was I am old enough to remember the animation before the series of movies. So, yeah. And then I couldn't understand what it means. But yeah, okay. So, more than meets the eye, meaning there's something more than what you initially see. And you can interpret that as, don't judge the book by its cover. There's more beyond. In the context of the five senses, right? So we can all agree that we have sight, smell, touch, hearing, and smell. Yeah. So you have your five senses. And when we talk about the physical sciences, we are talking about those five senses. But what about what some say is the sixth sense? So that is something that is not universally agreed on. So I'm not saying that it's right or wrong, but yeah, we are not agreeing on that. I mean, there is no universal consensus on that. Uh, what about the world we live in? We say there are three dimensions: length, width, and height. And we can add the fourth dimension as time. Are there just four dimensions then? What about 5D, 6D, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? So again, there are some saying there's more than those three or four dimensions, although it would be a bit hard to imagine or draw. But think about it, right? So, okay, I suddenly have, I was not expecting to do this, but okay. So, this one is a dot. So if we have just one dimension, you could have just a dot. If you have two dimensions, length and width, like this paper, so I could put two dots, hang on. Like in this two-dimensional paper, I could say, oh, point A is at the left of point B, point A is at the top of C, and so on. So you could have their positions with respect to each other. You can describe them more fully. But remember, this is a flat representation. So it's on paper. Like right now, you are seeing me on a screen. I'm assuming you're not yet seeing me projected as a three-dimensional hologram or 4D or 5D or whatever. I'm expecting you to see me as I see myself right now on the screen, two-dimensional, right? I know I am three-dimensional because I also have depth and thickness, but because I am recording myself on a screen that can only handle two dimensions. So I will be seen later on that three dimensions will be compressed to two. So, same with the supernatural. When we talk about the sixth sense and all that, it is really a challenge to explain them in terms of five senses. Because if it's something beyond the five senses, how can you explain with this? It's like talking about colors to someone who has always been born blind, or who has always been blind or is born blind, or talking about notes to someone who is deaf. Like, sure, you can feel with your hand, you could, sense energy with different ways. And that's also the other rabbit hole there, that some this is all energy anyway. What we sense when we say we have the five senses, there's actually just a spectrum that our different body parts can sense. And there's actually maybe just one sense if you think about it, or yeah, or a multitude, an infinite number of senses. That's another way to think about it. But going to our traditional explanation of five senses, right? So how can we explain emotion in terms of smell, hearing, touch, taste, or sight? We can explain part of it, but not completely. Like, touch is different from feeling as in emotion, right? Feeling as in touch, like hard, soft, is different from feeling as in love, hate, anger, apathy. So yeah, there's the challenge. So when, for example, if you notice this, you might notice, yeah, this is not just a drawing. This owl has different textures, right? You can sense where it is a bit curved, or sometimes it is a bit sharp here, and all that, right? If I turn it around. But if you take just one picture, it all looks flat. It's just like me and this owl, and everything in the background is just one piece of paper. If you print it on a piece of paper, or if you see it on a flat screen. So there's a lot of information lost. We can say it like that. When we go down from six senses to five senses, when we go down from the supernatural to the natural, from shall we say the spiritual to the physical. And I have been teaching physics for over a decade, and I have been studying physics for, yeah, and more than that. So for 2 decades, I think, more. Yeah, so we've always, physical science, that's physics, right? There's this attitude that everything in the physical sciences is superior, which is funny because the more I study it, the more it defines itself as limiting itself to the physical. Physics and physical science is limited to what we can sense with our five senses. Now, the other senses may or may not be true. There are a lot of people who can, make, claims that might be not true or might be lying. Or there might be some things that, are not observed by other people, right? For example, if I say, I love coffee, and somebody says, I hate coffee, we can actually both be true, both be correct at the same time. It doesn't have to be just one answer. So, there is that objective versus subjective reality there. But anyway, when we're talking about physical science, so my point is, we are um, there is this attitude that physics is superior, when ironically it is the most limiting, it is the most self-limiting of all the sciences. And it is so funny when physics and scientists demand their limitations on supernatural spiritual issues. So yeah, it is a blind man demanding that you explain color to him. And then because he cannot perceive color, he says, well, color doesn't exist because I can't see it. Well, that's because you're blind, literally and figuratively. Someone who cannot smell, saying, well, the different smells don't exist because I can't smell them. Somebody who lost their sensation of touch, well, there's no such thing as different textures because I cannot feel them. Somebody who does not has never heard anything through their ear and has not noticed that connection between touch and hearing, saying, well, there's no such thing as music, there's no such thing as different genres because I can't hear them. And lastly, huh, thank God I have the sensation of taste. So, somebody who's never had the sensation of taste saying, there's no such thing as five or six different tastes. There's no such thing as different flavors because I cannot sense them. So that's it. That's the arrogance of the blind, the deaf, and yeah, etc., etc. The arrogance of somebody who cannot perceive beyond their limitations and yet has the audacity to say that nothing exists beyond their understanding. It's so funny because, yeah, um, you already made conclusions. Such people, they already made conclusions which are in line with their beliefs. And it's so ironic because when you talk about science, it's supposed to be about looking for the truth, but with their self defined limitations, you cannot go beyond. You cannot find the truth with those definitions. Or at the very least, you will be limited. So yeah, I think I've blogged or posted about this several times. I've talked about this several times, but perhaps this is the first time I'm saying this on video, so why not? It was just reminded uh to me again yesterday because again we were talking about this with my friends, and I love talking with my friends because even though we sometimes you get so heated up with the arguments, nothing is taken personally. It's all, just a challenge, intellectually, and then we just hug and say Merry Christmas at the end. So it's all good. And it's great that we can challenge each other. And yeah, I'm actually very thankful that that came up again because um when I first was thinking about this, right? I was a college physics teacher, university physics teacher in the Philippines, which is predominantly a Christian nation. So the faith in God is assumed, and the discipline and perspectives of science are not too common. So, but I also had a background as an agnostic and or atheist. So I know what it means to be skeptical. Like ultimately we have to be honest with ourselves, right? So like everything has to be self-consistent, right? We cannot, or if there are some inconsistencies, we have to say it. We cannot just sweep it under the rug and keep on saying as if everything is all right or as if there's nothing wrong with the claim. If something is not completely correct, we have to admit it. So yeah, that is one of the cognitive dissonance things that I've really seen in physics. There are a lot of very biased people um, claiming that they are scientific, that they are people of science, and yet they are very biased. Science, I am old enough to remember, science is supposed to be about finding the truth. However, yeah, there is that limitation because it is science, especially physics, is limited to the five dimensions. Sorry, five senses and the three dimensions. Well, traditionally. Now we have quantum physics, and yeah, that's where all the mysticism comes in. That's where the God particle comes in. That's where the philosophy comes in. And yeah, I'm all for it. Yeah, let's go. Finally, that's gonna be discussed, right? And it has also been discussed yesterday that, yeah, maybe it's just a matter of science has not yet caught up with the measurement of such things, or maybe these things can also be measured scientifically, which is great. But as it stands now, with our limited technology and our limited definition, like, oh, we only need to get the five senses and all that, let us be honest also that when there is something beyond the five senses, when there is something beyond the three dimensions, when there is something that beyond what meets the eye, it doesn't mean it's not true. It doesn't automatically mean it's true, of course. Let's also be skeptical in the other way, right? Don't just believe anything just because somebody says it. Definitely. But that goes both ways. So we have to be skeptical, but also open minded. That's the thing. Because I've seen a lot of people only skeptical in one direction, only biased in one direction. Yeah, that is why it's biased, right? So we let us just be open to the possibility. If someone says, "Hey, maybe it's like this. Maybe it's not like this." Okay, let's see if that is possible. And science says, look for the best possible outcome. And if there's even one what's that? If there's even one counter proof, then a claim should be, debunked. But that might be, too much right now because if there are a lot of things happening, you could just use statistics. Like if there are 1,000 things happening, you can just get the general trend and all that. So, um, yeah, again, there is a challenge to just making one general claim like all coffee is bitter, something like that. And then you could say, no, there's one example here, etc. And no, there are two examples here, blah, blah, blah. So I am very grateful to the scientific method for helping me, straighten things out. There are things that are just claims. There are things that we can test, but there are also some things that are beyond the scope of science as we have it right now. So we can be more honest and say, okay, this is beyond the scope of traditional science. It may be possible, but just not beyond the scope of this study, or it is beyond my specific skill set. A scientist could say that. The funny thing is, yesterday, so Richard Dawkins, yeah, that very famous British scientist and atheist, he was brought into the conversation. So, yeah, so one of our friends was mentioning, oh, I'm reading Richard Dawkins's book right now, The God Delusion. And I said, yeah, did you know he recently he admits to intelligent design? And he was like, what? Because I remember when The God Delusion came out, 15 years ago or more or less. And he was one of the very famous scientists. And it's so funny because if something is really not real, why are you going to devote your life to that? Like, I don't devote my life debunking Santa Claus, right? Or, I mean, I know that because, yeah, he thinks it's a danger to society and all that. But with the little I've seen of his arguments, it's really all straw man. He looks at the very, extreme, idiotic examples and then he would attack it. And of course, he would win because it's the most ridiculous example. But what about the better examples? And does he have a brother who is actually oh no, that's Hitchens. Yeah, there's a brother. There are two brothers who one is a famous atheist and one is a famous Christian. So that's interesting in itself. But yeah, so I was so happy when around 2 years ago, 4 years ago, Richard Dawkins admits, yeah, there is a possibility for intelligent design, and I am so happy for him. I'm not going to gloat and say, haha, I knew it all along. I went to your threads, I went to your site, and I did this, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not like that. I did go to his site. But yeah, you know, we are happy when someone is well, I think it's natural when somebody agrees with us, yay, we're happy. But if we're talking about, things like um your ultimate happiness, your ultimate purpose in life, um I would like everybody to be as happy as I am. And if I am wrong, I would like to know what is the correct answer, right? So please tell me, enlighten me. If you think you have a better answer, please let me know. I would like to check it out. But what I've seen so far is, I mean, when I look at my belief system, and when I see some people who feel lost because they don't have that belief system, that's why I'm here. That's why I share, because I think you will benefit from this. It is useful, and I believe it is true. It looks to be true, and that's why I share. So I was really happy when Dawkins admitted that. And when I was showing that to my friend, apparently it wasn't only just 4 years ago, even as way back as the release of his book around 14 years ago, he was already admitting that, yeah, it is possible that intelligent design is, yeah, was the reason for the creation of the universe. So yeah, that's great. And then of course my friend was like, when was this? And then it might be clickbait, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, okay, then research that. At least there's an alternative point of view from for you right now. So yeah, so that friend of mine and me, we're both scientifically inclined, and we are also teachers, so we have the same temperament or the same way of looking at and explaining things. My other friends were not so inclined. So they just said, "Oh, look at the table. Surely this did not come here by accident. Somebody polished it, somebody sewed it, somebody painted it." And yeah, you can, and you don't even have to be a proper scientist to do that. And that's also interesting, right? Because um when you're too far up the ivory tower, yeah, there's again that sense of superiority, that arrogance that we are all guilty of. I am guilty of. So it's really helpful to stay grounded. And you're like, yeah, why do we need to go through all these complicated examples? Just look at the table. Actually, one of our friends just stood up and looked around because, so yeah, my atheist or skeptical friend was saying, there's no evidence for creation. And then the other friend just stood up and looked around. Look around. That's all. So, I mean, even though we did not actively see it happen, we can at least attest that there is a higher power. I am not able to do that. However, interestingly also, this will lead to another whole video. The new age mindset, or I don't, I'm reluctant to call it new age, but yeah, um similar. I'm not sure about if the term is correct. Is that since we are divine and we have the God spark within us, we are all children of the divine. We have that creative power. When I do art, when I make this video, when I write my things to do, and that's you also, a dear viewer. Whatever you do with your life, big or small, you create, right? When we don't just look at the TV and receive information, just listen and just receive and believe. When you actively do something with your life, no matter how small, you create. So we can say that we are also co-creators. And the more we get into that, the more we become, more fully activated back to our divine source. To me, there is no contradiction with what the Bible says, as we are children of God and we are made in His image and likeness, and that we are here to go forth and multiply and bring the kingdom of earth, the kingdom of heaven on earth, the kingdom of God on earth as it is in heaven. See, so for me, it's all the same already. So yeah, that's it. So the thing is, it still shows that, yeah, there is something creative, powerful, that started this universe. It is not just random, it is not just accidental, it is not just blind coincidence. There is something purposeful about these things. And if physical science says, well, you cannot prove that, you cannot prove purpose and reason and all that, I would say, yes, with all due respect, physical scientists, you cannot prove that by physical science, because physical science does not have the definitions of purpose, creation, what else? Divinity. It's not in the skill set. It's not in the working definitions of what physics is, of what science is. So of course it won't be there. That doesn't mean it's not true. That just means that physical science it's limited. It's not God, it's not spirituality that is limited. It's us. It's our physical science reasoning. So shout out to all my colleagues in the physical science world. Yeah, so yeah, I'm not claiming um to know more. I'm just asking us to be more circumspect. Do I know what that means? It just sounded appropriate. I'm just asking us to have a better perspective on things, like, yeah, a call for us to, you know, have a better perspective that we cannot demand that, you know, 12 dimensions come down to us and force them to be understandable to us. They can try, but we also have to try, right? I've actually also just been to the Michelangelo Sistine Chapel exhibit. So they recreated the paintings life size. So it's like you're in Italy yourself. And yeah, the very iconic painting of God reaching to Adam and doing that, right? Oh, by the way, side comment, you can get a poster to buy, and because the creation of Adam is so common, I was pleasantly surprised to see there's also a creation of Eve. So I got that because come on, everybody only knows about the creation of Adam. Hey, guess what? There's also the divine feminine. Yeah. So nothing against men, but we have to remember, our femininity as well. So yeah, so we have the connection of God and humans, right? So we cannot completely understand maybe now in our limited capacity. Does that mean God is not real? Does that mean that spirituality is not real? No, maybe it is because we are limited. Maybe it is because we cannot understand too much. But the good news there is we can understand. It is even promised, seek and you will find, right? If you are open to the possibility, then it can happen. Then you can understand more. But if you start with an attitude of, well, it's not true because I cannot sense it, then of course, you'll stay closed. You'll stay ignorant. You'll stay in your comfortable little senseless cave. And yeah, if that's what works for you, then that is your choice. But just a reminder, it is not the world that is limiting themselves, it is you. So yeah, thank you for listening. This is quite a long video. And yeah, love to everyone, understanding to everyone. Please let me know if you are triggered or not, or if you agree, whatever. Yeah, love and light to everyone. We're here to share understanding, to broaden understanding in all fields, right? I bear no hate to anyone. It's just that when I see some inconsistencies, I will really say it out loud. And if somebody tells inconsistencies to me, yeah, let me know as well. Yeah, so let us all take it constructively so we can grow and we can be better and we can all make the world a better place. Amen. Okay, so thank you everyone. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful Christmas or whatever holidays you are celebrating, and actually have a wonderful holiday celebration whatever day it is you are watching this. So take care. God bless everyone. Love and light.